on, guys, we gotta kick it.
All right, it's morphin' time. Dragon Force.
What's up guys, Stevie here with Lucky Crit. With the release of Fire Emblem Echoes, Nintendo and Intelligent Systems have begun rolling out some free DLC to all players. This DLC is known as the Gift of the Goddess, or Mila's Bounty in the West, and each gift will be available once per save file. There will be 5 gifts that will release over the coming weeks, and we now have access to 2 of them. Like I've said before, the first gift is a pair of boots to increase movement on a unit, but the second gift is a lot more interesting. Mila's Bounty 2, launching today in the West, gives the player the Villager's Fork item. The Villager's Fork allows any unit, barring the units that are already villagers in Celica, to become a level 1 villager by using it at a Mila shrine. This opens up a world of possibilities in terms of reclassing units and further adds to the depth and the replayability of Fire Emblem Echoes. Since Japan is a little bit ahead on the DLC schedule, we've also received word that the 4th and 5th gifts of the goddess will also give Villager Forks, bringing the total number of Villager's Forks in-game up to 3. This means that you'll have the ability to reclass or re-level up to 3 units per save file. I also want to make a note here that depending on which side you're playing when you pick up the DLC, the item will remain with that army until much later in the game, so if you want to use the Villager's Fork on someone on Celica's route or vice versa, make sure you collect it while playing as the correct character. You can transfer a few items between routes, but there are a limited number of times you can do this, and there are other items you may want to transfer later. So naturally, I'm sure some of you are wondering who the best options would be. Which units are the most deserving of the Villager's Fork item and will utilize it the best? First things first, I'm just going to put it out there that with these items you can effectively create a Mighty Morphin Cavalier team.
Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers!
Okay, just had to make a note of that. Moving on. One of the biggest candidates for use of the Villager's Fork item that I've seen recommended so far would have to be Lucas. Lucas's 3rd tier class, the Baron class, has amazing attack and defense bases, so after becoming a Baron or even just leveling him into the Knight class, you can effectively pass on these high stats to any other class. The recommendation would be to make him into a Mercenary for the great skill and speed bases once he reaches the Dreadfighter class, thus giving him amazing stats across the board, barring luck and resistance, although Dreadfighters receive halved black magic damage because of the Apotrope skill, which is perfect. So ideally, you could take anyone's high original final class bases and translate them into another class that desperately needs them, effectively rounding out and solidifying the unit. Because of this, in turn, Forsyth is also in a similar boat, and since I've seen many Echoes players out there with a not very high opinion of Forsyth, he's definitely a candidate to consider too, if you like the character or his personality. You can even take a more average unit like Clive and turn him into an absolute monster by reclassing him and leveling him again. I'd recommend going Mercenary here as well for the extra speed, as Clive's 25% speed growth needs a little bit of work. At the very least, this item will allow your units to go through another loop, like the Dreadfighter loop, where Dreadfighters level 10 and onwards can class change back into the Villager class and level up all over again. So it doesn't even really matter who you use the Villager's Fork item on. Whoever you pick is going to be much better and a more well-rounded unit with all the extra leveling and jumping up to the new class's base stats. So just be sure to figure out the character's weak points, bases, and growths-wise, and consider having them swap into a class that can rectify any issues that they have. In terms of class growth rates, Cavalier, Paladin, and Gold Knight offer 0% increases and decreases across the board, so the only change you'd have by jumping into this class would be that you drop the stat increases and decreases of the previous class for a more balanced approach. The Soldier, Knight, and Baron classes will increase your HP, attack, and defense growths by 5%, while lowering your speed 10% and luck 5%. Mercenary, Myrmidon, and Dreadfighter will decrease your attack and defense growths by 5%, but give you a 5% increase in skill and speed for anyone hurting in those departments. Archer, Sniper, and Bow Knight decrease attack, speed, and defense by 5%, but give a 10% skill boost. Male Mage and Sage decrease defense by 10%, but give a 5% boost to attack and skill. And for female characters, Pegasus Knight and Falco Knight decrease HP, attack, and defense by 5%, but give a 5% boost to speed and luck. Cleric and Saint decrease HP and defense by 10%, with a 5% increase to luck. And Female Mage and Priestess decrease HP by 10%, skill and defense by 5%, and boost attack and speed by 5%. The chart with all of this information will be in the description below, thanks to Serenes Forest. And remember, since this is Fire Emblem Echoes and it's a Fire Emblem Gaiden remake, just by class changing your units in general, you'll jump up to the base stats of the new class, so that has the potential of fixing certain units' problem areas as well, even if their growths aren't much improved by the new class. Though, obviously you do also need to realize that the unit you do class change will be stuck in whatever new class you jump to, barring the Mercenary class line, who can jump back to Villager after becoming a level 10 Dreadfighter. I've also seen a lot of you wondering if this item would allow units like Faye to finally become an archer, like she is in Heroes, but sadly this doesn't appear to be the case. Villagers will be unable to use the Villager's Fork, as it doesn't really make much sense for a unit that's already a Villager to use it, and the Archer class is still a male-only class, and I can't see them breaking gender restrictions with this item. Anyway, that's gonna wrap up today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to slash the thumbs up if you enjoyed this episode or learned anything new, comment Echoes in the comment section, and also let me know what your plans are for your Villager Forks. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet so you can stay up to date on our content, and for behind the scenes information and news revealed on the fly, follow us on Twitter at Lucky Crit Gaming. And I'll see you all next time.